Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during this show. And that certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. And we're also going to have a special guest in about 4 seconds here who is going to give away one of his books at one of the trivia questions. So that'll be kind of fun. Today's trivia theme is just miscellaneous trivia. Now today, our special guest is Jay Conner of the Conner Marketing Group. Jay, welcome to The Best of Investing.
Well, thank you so much, Edward. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to talk about my most passionate subject, and that's private money for real estate. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. That seems to be always our favorite topic is private money for real estate. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and then we'll get into these great questions you sent me.
Sure. Well, my wife, Carol Joy, she and I have been investing here in Eastern North Carolina full-time since 2003.
Okay.
We've done all kinds of real estate, commercial. We've got a shopping center that we built from the ground up, but our focus has been on single-family houses.
Okay.
And in the first 6 years, Edward, that we were in the business from 2003 to 2009, we relied on the local bank to fund our deals. And then myself, along with every other real estate investor in the world, with the global financial crisis of 2007, 8, and 9, we lost our lines of credit. I had to find a better and quicker way to fund our deals. So we learned about private money. Since that time, we've been using private money from individuals, not institutional money, but from individuals to fund our deals. We got 44 private lenders funding our deals these days, about $8.5 million that we move from project to project to project. And so that's my passion, is sharing how it is that private money transformed our real estate investing business.
Excellent. You know, it reminds me, in 1979, my dad had this real estate deal, and I didn't have, I was 19 years old, didn't have any money. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go to the bank. And this is such a smoking hot deal. The bank's going to love this, right? I didn't know anything. I was 19 years old, And so they said, well, what do you put up as collateral? I said, well, look, I got this interest in this this limited partnership. And they said, no. And I couldn't, back then being 19, I had no idea. What are you, stupid bank? You can't figure this out, And it's like, now being a lot older and a little bit wiser, I realized, no, they want just safe collateral,
That's right. That's right.
So I totally get that. So how did you, go from the banks to the private money? What was the first thing you did?
So now when you say what's the first thing I did as far as raising private money?
Yeah. Like, okay, so you go to the bank says, sorry, we're flush out of cash right now,
Right.
You're going to have to look for some alternative. Usually people go to family and friends, that sort of thing.
Oh, right. Yeah. What they call relationship money. So How did I start? Well, first of all, I learned at the very beginning that to do private money the way I do it, I'm not going to go around begging, chasing, asking anybody for money. In fact, Edward, I know you're an expert in private money. You know what? I have never asked anybody for money. I've never asked anybody to fund any of my deals. And people ask me all the time, they say, Jay, how in the world do you have all that private money? You got all your deals being funded by private lenders, and you don't ask anybody for money. And here's the answer. First of all, the money comes first. So I started out teaching people my private lending program. The traditional way to borrow money is you go to the bank, you get on your hands and knees, you put your hands underneath your chin, and you say, please loan me money, please give me a mortgage, And you know what? It's 180 degrees from that. I started teaching people my private lending program. I set the rules. I set the interest rate. I set the length of the note. And so I teach them the program, how they can get high rates of return safely and securely. And so they tell me how much they have to invest. They love the program. Is it investment capital that they have, or is it retirement funds that they have? We have 44 private lenders funding our deals right now, and over half of them are using their retirement funds to invest and get either tax-deferred returns or tax-free returns, depending on the type of retirement funds they have. So I teach them. They tell me how much they've got to invest. And then I go find a deal for them to fund just as soon as possible. And you know what, Edward?
Okay.
Not only have I not asked for any money, I've never pitched a deal in my life. They say, Jay, how do you get your deals funded if you don't pitch the deal? Well, first of all, I don't call them up. By the way, Edward, we still have landlines here in North Carolina. I call them up and I don't ask them if they want to fund my deal. That's the most stupid question I could ask in my life. Of course, I know they want to fund my deal. They've been waiting for the good news phone call.
Yeah.
I call them up. I tell them 4 things. This is all they want to know. And in fact, when they're starting out, it's more than they want to know. I call them up and I say, I've got great news for you. I can now put your money to work. I got a house in Newport with an after repaired value of $200,000. The funding required is $150,000. I know they got $150,000. They already told me. The closing is next Thursday. You need to have your funds wired by next Wednesday. End of conversation. They've been waiting for the phone call. I'm not going to bring them a deal to fund unless it meets the criteria of my private lending program. So that's how I do it without asking for money.
I love it. Okay, we're going to get more into that because I've got some questions for that. Okay, here's our first trivia question. Now, on this trivia question, we're going to give away the tanning certificate, which is worth over $100. The next question, we're going to give away your book. All right. First trivia question is, hematology is a branch of medicine involving the study of what? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate. Again, hematology is a branch of medicine involving the study of what? 888-912-1190. Don't touch that dial. The Best of Investing will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Edward Brown here along with my special guest, Jay Conner. First trivia question was, hematology is a branch of medicine involving the study of what? Jay, what's the answer to that?
Well, hematology sounds like it's got the same root word as hemoglobin. So I'm going to guess it's the study of blood.
Bingo, you are correct. Very good. All right. Now, I don't know if you can use that tanning certificate because you're all the way in North Carolina.
I'm in North Carolina. I'm going to forfeit my prize to someone else in your California area.
Well, I'm sure they'll appreciate that. So it's interesting because you were mentioning before about, not quote selling your product, so to speak. We're kind of the same way at Pacific Private Money, where we don't do promotion, we do attraction. And I'm going to blip into this for a minute, and then we're going to come back to you. So like at Pacific Private Money, we have 4 different funds. One of our funds is one that almost acts like a money market account. It's liquid. You only have to give us 30 days notice when you want your money back. Now, the 2 catches are, 1, you have to be an accredited investor, but that's the way it is for all funds, like ours. The second thing is the minimum investment in this one is $250,000. But other than that, you can't write checks against it, but you could put your money in today. And then let's say 2 months later, you say, hey, you know what? I really need my money back. Well, within 30 days, we'll give you your money back. And here's the best part. For $250,000, we're paying 7%. For $500,000, we're paying 8%. For $1 million, we're paying 9%. And if you give us like lots and lots and lots of money, like $5 million, we can potentially pay up to 10%. And the reason, the big question is, well, how can it be so liquid? And the reason is that we are funding loans, primarily doing bridge loans to owner-occupied consumer, purposes. And then we package them together, and then we sell them to the big boys, the big institutions. And we do that in tranches of, $5, $6, $7, $8 million worth. So every roughly 2 to 3 weeks, the big boys will send us that money back. And then before we put it back out on the conveyor belt to do another loan, we first find out, has anybody put a redemption request in? If they have, boom, they get paid off. So I've seen redemption requests been handled in 3 days because the person just happened to ask for their money back. And 3 days later, we got a big check because that's when the tranche had sold. So, again, being in this business for well over 30 years, I don't know of any other conservative, liquid, I would consider this roughly, fairly liquid investment that's paying in today's market that higher rate of return. So
That's fantastic, Edward.
yeah.
You know, one of the big reasons my private lenders want to do business with me is three big reasons. And they really relate to what you got going on. One is they're going to make a whole lot more money than they can, you know, in the local CD. You know, even with the rise in interest rates, you know, a lot of people don't know this, but on the front page of the money section of USA Today, every Thursday, they publish the national average of certificates of deposit yields in the United States. Prior to COVID, it got down to 0.17% was the national 12-month. Well, even with the increase in mortgage rates, as recent as 2 weeks ago, the national average was 0.97%, still less than 1%. Well, you know, I pay my private lenders a straight 8% across the board. You've got phenomenal rates that you're paying. So they make a lot of money. Number two, what they love about doing business with me and with you as well is, in contrast to the stock market, their investment's not volatile. It's, you know, they know exactly what the rate of return is going to be. And, you know, some of my private lenders, the older they get, they ain't got time to live through another correction.
Correct. And I'm with you on that. You know, I'm almost 63, but I've been, you know, again, I remember all the way back to the 70s, you know, with high inflation and all this. And the way I've always kind of looked at this is, I don't have time to make it back again, but I don't have the stomach for it. And I don't want to lose principal, because, you know, and I've gone through this exercise with people. I said, you know, you lose 25% in the stock market or whatever investment, the next year you got to make 33% on your money just to break even. Because you're working with that much less money. Now, sure, you know, and I tell people, I said, listen, when you invest with Pacific Private Money, you're not going to make 20, 30, 40% like you may or may not make in the stock market, but it's going to be liquid. And you know your money's there because what's it tied to? It's tied to the real estate. We are basically the bank, so we're the lender, right? Now the thing is, we don't offer you know, depreciation and other you know, tax benefits for owning the real estate. However, our funds qualify for QBID, which, for people who know about that, if you qualify, you'd have to ask your CPA. 20% of the income that we pay, you don't have to pay taxes on. Under the current rules, if you qualify. So, you know, 8% ends up being a higher rate of return, you know, for if someone puts $500,000 in. What is the minimum investment? What's the minimum investment people invest when they invest with you? And what's the time horizon generally?
Yeah, so I have two different minimums. So a private lender with me, we do everything. So you have funds, right? Syndication, et cetera.
Right.
With me, everything that I do is what's called one-offs. So you got a house that a private lender is investing and loaning money on. And so you got a house, you got the private lender. Well, a private lender can be either in first position for the purchase, or if they have a smaller amount of money and they only have an amount of money for like rehabbing of a house, then they would be in a junior position. So but we still do a total loan to value maximum of 75% of the after repaired value, right? So we give a great equity cushion. So the minimum for purchase is $100,000. The minimum in a junior position is $50,000.
And what you said you pay 8% for the
8% in first position, 10% in second position.
All right. When we come back, I do want to ask you, like, the experience that you've had with borrowers who maybe haven't been, you know, as stellar, and then, you know, do you have construction draws and that kind of fun stuff that we'll get a little deeper. That'll be kind of fun. All right, we're going to cut to our second commercial break, and this time the gift is going to be Jay's book, which the name of it is
Where to Get the Money Now.
All right, this will be good for those people who are looking for the money. All right, the musical My Fair Lady was based on what classic play? Call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer is going to win Jay's book, which is pretty awesome. Again, the musical My Fair Lady was based on what classic play? All right, stay with us. You are listening to The Best of Investing. When we come back, we're gonna grill Jay in a good way. We're always nice to our guests, but we want to get into the nitty gritty because a lot of people are listening and kind of going, Well, this all sounds good, but I really want to get into a little deeper dive. All right. All right. Stay with us. The Best of Investing. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing one more time. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, Jay Conner, my co-host, Mark Hoff, Nam Fon. We're like doing all kinds of deals today, so they couldn't be co-hosts. I'm sure they would have loved to have been on the show. All right, so now our second trivia question, where we're going to be giving Jay's book away to the first caller with the correct answer. The question was, the musical My Fair Lady was based on what classic play? Do you know the answer to that one, Jay?
I thought it was My Fair Lady. Obviously, that's not right.
No. Pygmalion.
Oh,
Pygmalion,
my
yeah, it's one of
lands.
those.
I hadn't
Oh,
heard that in
yeah.
forever. Well, I cannot win my own book.
You can't win your own book. Well, that's probably a good thing. Okay. So let me ask you this: when because you divide your deals, it sounds like, into are you mostly giving money to fix and flippers for the most part?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, regardless as to whether it's what we call an ugly house or a pretty house, when the seller requires all the cash, which in the real world is most of the time,
Yes.
we're going to use private money to fund the deal.
Okay.
But most of the properties that we buy, I'm in a small market, Edward, only 40,000 people in my market, but we do 2 to 3 deals a month. Our average profit right now is $78,000 per deal, funded by private money. So most of the deals that we're doing, we are buying at 50% of the after repaired value or less. And so most of our properties are needing renovation to some degree.
And where are they primarily located?
All right here in Carteret County and Craven County, just in 2 counties here in eastern North Carolina.
Well, the good part about that from an investor standpoint is it's right in your backyard. So you know the area really well. You know exactly what it needs. You know exactly what it'll sell. So now you're actually, you don't really have a borrower because you guys are actually buying it for your portfolio, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Gotcha.
So we're not like a middle person. We're not a broker.
Yeah.
Everything that we're borrowing is for our company.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's say the house is 200,000 after repair value. The most you'll pay for that is 100,000, right?
Well, so here, yeah. So if I'm paying 100, then I may have 35,000, in renovation costs.
Mm-hmm.
The most I'm going to borrow is 75% of the after repaired value, not of the purchase price. So that's where it's different between institutional money and, private money, relationship money. So we don't have draws because I'm getting all the money up front. I'm getting all the rehab money up front. And of course, no lender is going to do that unless you've got the trust, the relationship in place. And even with that, I do not borrow any unsecured money. Every time we have a note, that note is back and collateralized by the real estate that we are purchasing.
Gotcha. And so do you have a bunch of contractors who work for you, or four
general contractors. So, right now we've got Pearson Circle, Chatham Street, Market Street, Ridge Road, and one more I'm forgetting. So right now we've got 5 renovations, rehabs going on right now. And that's about what we've got going at any given time.
So actually you or your company is the borrower, really? That's correct. Okay. And so Mr. Jones is a client and he'll invest. So does your company put any of its own money in, or do you just strictly get the first and the second from investors?
Yep, we're using all with private money.
Gotcha.
So again, the relationship is important.
Absolutely. Because, and again, this is no slight to anybody, but the question probably comes up, well, where's your incentive? Like, let's say if you start to see, oh my gosh, we didn't realize, the foundation needs this, or the roof's in much worse shape, or it got dry rot, et cetera. You know what? I'm just going to throw the towel in and go on to my next deal. Do you personally guarantee it, or what happens to those investors? Investor A, the first, and investor B, the second, with the rehab money? What
Yeah.
happens?
Well, I've never thrown the towel in on any
Okay,
deal.
good.
Number two, do my renovations and rehabs ever run more than I anticipated? Always,
Always, yeah.
100% of the time, always they cost more. But here's the secret sauce. The secret sauce in making money in this business, at least from my perspective, it's not in estimating repairs to the penny. The secret sauce is in making the offer.
Offer the
Making the
purchase.
offer and buying the property at such a substantially discounted amount, then I mean, is Murphy, if something can go wrong, goes wrong, is Murphy going to show up? Yeah, Murphy's going to show up. Murphy's cousins, Murphy's grandparents, Murphy's children, they're going to show up in the property. So, like, for example, we just recently sold a house at 1010 Oak Drive here in Morehead City. I bought it for $188,000.
Okay.
Now, when I bought it at the time, the after repaired value was $375,000.
Oh,
I anticipated the rehab to be right at about $85,000.
okay.
Well, guess what? The rehab was not $85,000. The rehab was $110,000. But guess what?
You still had enough
The
cushion.
after repaired value wasn't $375,000. We sold that house for
Amazing.
$510,000. So, you know, between what we bought it for at 188, I mean, I could have an overrun of $20,000 or $30,000, and everybody's going to be made whole.
And by the way, your first and your second, they don't get any profit participation, right? They just get straight interest rate.
They get the straight interest.
Okay.
So we're not joint venturing. They are the bank.
Very good. Okay. And it's nice that they have a deed of trust. Okay, we're going to cut to our third trivia question. This goes fast. What is the more common term for sternum? It's a part of the body. All right. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with correct answer wins the tanning certificate. What is the more common term for sternum? All right, stay with us. Best of Investing will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. One more time, Edward Brown here, along with my special guest, Jay Conner. Third trivia question: what is the more common term for sternum?
Well, I think, I'm not sure, but is it something to do with your rib cage?
Okay, well, the breastbone is the
The
sternum.
breastbone. Okay.
Breastbone. Well,
Well, first I
close
thought
enough.
chest, and I'm going, no,
Yeah.
it's not your chest, it's your rib cage. It's like somewhere here in the middle of your
Somewhere in
body.
the middle of your body. Yeah. Okay. So now, Jay, you gave me a whole bunch of good things here. Some of the stuff we already talked about, like, top reasons for using private money. Mostly the banks are not giving it away, and also on your deals, you don't personally guarantee it, right? The only
No,
recourse is
I do not
is the real
personally
estate.
guarantee. I let the real estate that's backing it
Yeah.
do all the well, not guarantee, but give the collateral. And again, they got a big equity cushion between what's the after repaired value of that property and what's actually being borrowed.
Well, again, especially if the person in second position, they're writing a check and it just goes into your account, and there's a trusting relationship that you're actually going to do what you say you're going to do about repairing the property. But, if you've been doing this for a long time, you're in a small town, everybody knows you, everybody, they know where to find you. It's
That's
kind of one of
right,
those
that's right.
things where it's
Well,
like,
and you know
well,
what?
you'll
You
be
just
okay.
said something important, Edward, and that is actually, when I have a new private lender wanting to do business with us, and we get so many referrals these days, and I say, well, Jay, I'm ready to start. What do I do? Write you a check? No. You do not write me any checks. So when I have a private lender funding one of our real estate deals, they wire their funds directly. Here in North Carolina, we actually use real estate attorneys to close deals. I know in California, you probably use title companies or escrow, whatever.
Yeah.
But regardless, whoever your closing agent is, the private lender wires their funds to the closing agent. Then after closing and everything's on public record, everybody's protected, then the funds are dispersed.
Yeah. Okay. That totally makes sense. Have you, we're going to put you on the spot a little bit. Have you had any deals go south?
Well, I've always had, as I said, overruns. Is
Yeah.
the profit going to be as much as I predicted? Sometimes it's more, like on 1010
Yeah.
Oak. But I have never had a deal go south to where the private lender could not get every penny that was promised to them.
There you go. That's good. And how long have you been doing this?
So I've been borrowing private money. So I've been doing real
Yeah.
estate since 2003, but
Okay.
I started borrowing private money in 2009. We've rehabbed a little over 450 houses
Wow.
right here in our local area. And so we've got, quite a bit of experience on the rehabbing side and working with private lenders.
Gotcha. And I'm going to give you a little plug here because a lot of times people are going to go, oh, well, 2009. I mean, that was after the crash. The thing is, real estate it didn't crash. It had a prolonged decline. So it's just like Pacific Private Money, we were lending in 2008, 9, 10, and 11. The market was still declining, but nobody lost money. Generally speaking, how long a term are you telling your first and second mortgage holders?
Yeah, typically they're going to be in and out and get their money back within a year because we flip
Yeah.
so many of them. However, the notes, we write the term for 2 years. The
Smart.
reason we do that is sometimes we will sell a home on rent to own or lease purchase, and we do something very different. A lot of real estate investors, in fact, most real estate investors, when they sell on rent to own or lease purchase, they leave the buyer to their own devices to get their mortgage. And
Yeah.
that's not going to happen, hardly ever. We
Yeah.
actually require our rent to own buyers to enter our credit repair program, and 80% of our rent to own buyers actually cash out and get a mortgage.
Good
And
to know.
so that's why we write the term for 2 years, because sometimes it takes a little longer for
Yeah.
the property to not only be occupied, but for that rent to own buyer to get ready for a mortgage. And so we'll do 2 years. However, we give something similar to what you do in every note with our private lenders. By the way, a lot of our private lenders are using investment capital or they're using their retirement funds
Yep.
by moving their retirement funds to a self-directed IRA company.
Uh-huh.
But what happens a lot of times is they will loan us the money. We will actually end up paying that back early prior to the note coming due. But there's one thing that we do in every note. We give our private lenders in the promissory note a 90-day call option. I heard you say you're giving your investors a 30-day
Yeah.
call option, but we give them 90 days, and which, we don't need 90 days. I mean, I've got a problem, Edward. I've got a whole lot more money than I can use, right, to put to work. And so if someone needs their money back prior to the note coming due, we typically can get that replaced for them and replace their money with another private lender's money.
Yeah.
In less than 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, it's interesting because you don't have a fund, you have individual investors, but interestingly enough, I'm just going to put it out there. If for some reason you have some fairly wealthy people who are waiting for you to come to them with a deal, and sometimes it takes a while. You got to do your due diligence on getting bids and looking at the properties. Keep us in mind, right? Because we can always give the money back at 30. After 30, all we need is 30-day notice. So it's a good place. It's a good way to get some. Anyway, kind of push a little bit there. Let's see here. Before we go to break, how much money is available to use on deals?
So when you say how much is available, you mean how much do I have sitting on the sideline or what?
Well, that was one of the questions that you guys posed for me to ask, was how much money is available to use on deals?
Oh, now I understand your question. Now, how much private money is available? Well, that's an interesting question because it's got an interesting answer. Prior to COVID, Edward, there was 18 trillion with a T, $18 trillion in cash sitting in people's retirement accounts that they weren't using and they didn't know what to do with it. Guess what? And I know you know this because you're plugged in. Regardless of your political affiliation, facts are facts. In the current administration, there's been more money printed in the basement of the White House than any other administration, particularly in 2020. And the self-directed IRA company that I refer all my private lenders to because they've got amazing customer service, they just told me 2 months ago, not 18 trillion, 2 months ago, there was $31 trillion in cash.
Still
31
31
trillion
trillion and
in
it's still,
cash sitting in people's retirement
well,
accounts.
they should all give it, they
do.
should just give it to the government, retire the national debt, and then we'll be down to zero.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Or maybe better than that, invest with you and get 8, 9, or 10%.
Yeah. Well, okay, I can't quite place $31 trillion. Not almost, but not quite. All right. When we come back, we're going to ask Jay some good strategies and some pieces of financial advice to offer to the audience. Let's see. Also, and then we'll give you a little bit of update on some of the other stuff we're doing at Pacific Private Money. So, in fact, I'll give that a little bit right now. So we're in a position, our Freedom Fund, the one that we're paying either 7, 8, or 9%, we've got $42 million out. And I mean, it just grows like crazy because, again, the same thing, people are looking and going, well, where else can I put my money that conservatively? So if you need to look us up, it's pacificprivatemoney.com. Stay with us. The Best of Investing will be back with some closing comments. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, Jay Conner. Jay, this has been very interesting. A lot of good stuff. Let's give out some advice to the audience. It's one of your questions here is one key piece of financial advice to offer to the audience.
Oh, wow. Well, as far as financial advice goes, number one, do business with somebody that you have checked out. You've done your due diligence. And just because there's like a big carrot hanging out there with a return, make sure you know who you're doing business with, right? Yeah. And number two, myself, I don't invest in anything unless I understand it. In other words, don't let your greed glands in your neck determine your decision as to who you're going to do business with.
Yeah. So, it's funny. I tell people the exact same thing. And because people, a lot of times they go, well, I don't understand this private money thing. And so I go through an example. I said, we're like, in our case, I said, we're the bank. I said, if you went to Wells Fargo and you wanted to buy a house and they wouldn't lend you the money because your credit score is 2 points too low, or, or you haven't been at your job for 2 years, what are you going to do? But you want to buy that house. You can go to your mom or dad or uncle and maybe they've got the money and then that's fine. But what do you do if they don't have the money? You're gonna get robbed the bank? No, you're gonna call a mortgage broker who's gonna call us because we're private financing. So we're just like the bank. We got a deed of trust, just like you give your clients. Same sort of thing. That's good. Hey, we got a quick minute here. The one story that you had that you sold it for 500,000. Has that been your most successful story?
That was one of the higher profit ones. The most profit I've ever made on a deal, sold the home for $625,000 right before property values started coming down in 2007. That was right here in Morehead City. Bought that house for just under $200,000. The renovation was $200,000.
Wow.
So we had $400,000 in it, but we sold it in the multiple listing service for $600,000. And wow, it was like a mini mansion. I had the big southern columns on the front of the house.
Well, you must. The thing is, my guess is that you probably got some pretty good construction crews who do good quality work. That's so important. Guys showing up on time and doing good work, and not jerking you around for change orders and that sort of thing. Because I mean, you're the man. You got to control those guys.
Absolutely.
Control your
and we're very blessed. I mean, one of our contractors has been our primary contractor for 15 years. Another one's been with us for about 8 years. And so the great news is, as you said, we're in a small town. Everybody knows everybody. And, one question I get all the time, Edward, from my students is, well, how do I find a contractor and decide who I'm going to do business with? Here's a big tip. Call the subcontractors, call the electricians, call the plumbers, call the HVAC people. They know who the good ones are because they know who pays them on time.
Very, very good point. In fact, there was some advice I gave to a contractor one time. I said, before you do any work, especially this in California, I said, check a preliminary title report and see how much debt that homeowner has, because yeah, if you don't get paid, sure, you can do a mechanics lane. But if there's $15 million of loans on a house and you're behind them, because they sometimes they don't understand. They think, oh, I got a mechanics lien. I'm in first position. No, real estate taxes, recorded deeds of trust, and then your recorded mechanics lien. And of course, I'm not
That's
giving
right.
you any legal advice. Give you the okay. Before we cut out, really quickly, how do people get a hold of you if they're interested in what you offer?
Absolutely. Edward, I love sharing with other real estate investors, whether they're a seasoned real estate investor or brand new, how it is that I get my deals funded with private money. And I've got a book that I just recently released on Amazon. It's $20, but here
Okay.
on your show, your listeners can get my book for free.
All
It's
right.
called Where to Get the Money Now. And it's not an ebook. It's an actual book that I'll
Actual real book.
autograph and mail in the mail.
All right.
Just cover a
Send me
couple.
a copy. I'm going to read that because I want to know more about that. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they can get it at jayconner.com. And I'm an ER, by the way. So
Okay.
www.jayconner.com.
Gotcha.
Get the book and I'll ship it to you.
All right. Here's our thoughts for the day. What happened when the turkey got into a fight? He got the stuffing knocked out of him. And Bill Gates said, I choose a lazy person to do a hard job because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it. I thought that was pretty good. All right. Tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.